What's up guys, ATCG here. Welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day, and today we're profiling one of the newest decks, one that got support out of Rising Rampage, and it's Fortune Ladies. Nowadays, you usually see Fortune Ladies only in Duel Links because it's one of the best decks, but don't forget that this deck also exists in real life, so it's fun to have a look at how it can play in real life. It has a very similar playstyle to Duel Links if you're familiar with that, but I'm going to explain how exactly this deck works in real life, and it's one of my old favorite decks because 5Ds is such an amazing anime. So let's begin. We have the new tuner Fortune Lady Pasty. Pasty is a really good card because she can manipulate the levels so you can go into any kind of synchro you want. Basically, you target a Fortune Lady, you banish spellcasters from your hand, field, or graveyard, and then, depending on the number you banished, you either increase or decrease the level of the targeted Fortune Lady by the same amount. So you usually want to target her to give her a level boost, depending on what type of synchro summoning you need to do. And she also triggers Lighty, which is something that the deck lacked before, so Konami made sure that you can also do that, and Lighty is one of the best effects that you will find out of the 2009 Ancient Prophecy booster box, because she was not a once per turn special from the deck, so that's actually really good if you can use it consistently, and that's what Pasty does. Speaking of Lighty, 3. There are ways to trigger her now, a lot of ways, and she gives you a Fortune Lady from the deck. Fortune Ladies have amazing effects for cards that were created in 2009, so you can use them to their maximum potential, and Lighty is probably the best effect that you can use, and it's very easy with a new support to get both Lighty and Pasty on the field to be able to use Lighty's effect. The second best effect is too watery. When she's special summoned, while you have another Fortune Lady on the field, you draw 2 cards. Again, not once per turn. If you can use her multiple times, then you can draw so many cards. Usually, what you want to do is you want to have Pasty and Lighty on the field, then banish Lighty and another spellcaster, preferably from your graveyard, but sometimes you're forced to banish from your hand, but that's no big deal, because Pasty will become level 3, Lighty will trigger special summoning Watery from the deck, she's a level 4, you will draw 2 cards due to Watery's effect, and you have a level 7 Synchro, which is the level of the new Fortune Lady Synchro that you most likely want to summon going first, or maybe even going second, but this is how the deck usually wants to start the game out. Now for the rest of the Fortune Ladies, 1 Darky. When a Fortune Lady destroys a monster by battle, you special summon a Fortune Lady from your graveyard. You can trigger Watery's effect, or you can trigger the next Fortune Lady, which I'll show you. But she's really good. The problem is that she's level 5. You have to tribute a monster if you draw her, so you usually want to tutor her out the late game with Lighty's effect. And 1 Fiery, because when she's summoned from the effect of a Fortune Lady, you pop a monster, and your opponent takes damage equal to the attack points of that destroyed monster, so you can trigger her with Lighty or with Darky, so you can use her whenever you want, but keep in mind that in order for this effect to activate, for some reason you have to summon her in attack mode, so keep that in mind in case you want to try out the deck. And now for the non-archetype monsters, I play 2 Silent Magician, which is a really good combo when you go with Every, because Every keeps bringing herself back. Every is a synchro, which I'll show later. She keeps bringing herself back every one of your opponent's end phase, so you ideally want to tribute her during your turn, because she doesn't give you any interaction during your opponent's turn, while Silent Magician does. Once per turn, she can get a spell card and destroy it, and she also floats, which is very nice in case your opponent deals with her. But you don't want to clog your hand with multiple Silent Magicians. Well, technically, you can summon both if you draw 2, because you can end with 2 spellcasters on the field, but that means that you will not synchro summon Every, which will not give you a follow-up in case your opponent deals with both Silent Magicians. So that's why you don't need to C2. And 1 level 8, because she's the one that Silent Magician floats. She's not as good as the Silent Swordsman version, because Silent Swordsman negates all the spells. She's unaffected by all spells, which is not that great, but she's still a free 3500 beater, so I don't see a reason why you wouldn't want to play her. And the last monster, 3 Ash, because she's the most generic hand trap. Now let's go to the spells. 3 Calling. Really good card. When you have a Fortune Lady on the field, you special summon one from the deck. Unfortunately, it locks you into synchros, which kind of limits the ceiling of the deck, because you can only do so much with synchros, but still, it's a really good card. It's also searchable, and this is the way you get both Pasty and Lighty on the field. And you can search it with Fortune Vision, searches any Fortune Lady card. So if you already have calling, you can search either Lighty or Pasty, whichever one you need, and you can start your combos playing. It's a continuous spell that has another effect. If a card is banished during your opponent's turn, then you will not be able to take any battle damage, or if you banish during your turn, then all your cards cannot be destroyed. So keep that in mind in case this comes up, because sometimes it can make a difference, a small difference, but still a difference. I play quite big spellbook engine compared to all the builds I've seen. I think having 3 knowledge is absolutely mandatory, because the deck is not as consistent as it is in Duel Links, that you have 20 cards in the deck so you can get to every single time. So you want to be able to draw those cards while also triggering Light's effect to get Pasty or Watery from the deck. So this is why I think 3 knowledge is absolutely important. And if you don't have Light, so you can send any spellcaster, or if you don't want to use the normal summon for knowledge, then you can send a different spellbook from your hand, which I play full handful, which I'm playing also 3 secrets, because not only does it search your knowledge, but if you already have knowledge, you can discard it to the graveyard from your hand, so you don't have to waste knowledge sending a monster from your field. If it's not Light, then it's not the most optimal play. So that's why I think it's very important. And also I'm playing 1 Fate, because if you draw both secrets and knowledge, or if you don't want to search knowledge because you have Lighty on the field, so you don't want to send secrets to the graveyard, so you basically use knowledge and use secrets and you search this, and this gives you a Book of Moon during your opponent's turn, sometimes a Fate, but this a banish. Sometimes this can happen in the late game, not in the first turn. The first turn you cannot send 3 spellbooks to the grave, you can only send 2, but still Book of Mooing a monster can actually be really very important against certain matchups. Against Salamangreats, if you can stop their normal summon. If they don't have a Signed Mining, then they will not be able to extend, do all their plays. Against Orcust now, it's very reliant on its normal summon or getting a Harp Horror from the deck, which you can later on use from the graveyard, but if you put it face down, they won't be able to link with it, they won't be able to do anything with it, so it's still a really good extra disruption you can have in the deck. 1 for 1, it kind of acts like a 4th Fortune Lady calling, because you can either have Pasty or Lighty, but some of the other one from the deck, because they're both level 1, and this is how you want to do the plays. 1 Scapegoat, because weak decks can take advantage of this card to have an extra win condition. I know it's limited, but you will see it sometimes, so it's good enough. And the deck usually ends with 1 monster on the field, so it's not like you will not be able to use it. Unless you want to bring back Every, but you most likely won't use Scapegoat instead of bringing back Every. And the last spell, 3 Called, because getting Every on the field is very important if you want to have a chance of having a grind game, so you can't afford having your Fortune Lady calling ashed. And for the traps, 3 Permanents. Because it doesn't get called, it's a really good generic card. I was thinking of maining Diddy Crow, but I think that if I'm going to play a deck that doesn't have the best matchup against anything, then I'm not going to afford to play dead cards against other matchups, so this is a much generic one along with Ash. And I'm playing 3 Strike, because this is a going first deck, so you won't have something that can potentially deal with your opponent's plays, or maybe even end their turn in some perfect scenarios. But it's still a really good card. Now for the extra deck, 1 Fortune Lady Every. I don't think you need more than 1, because, like I said, she keeps bringing herself back from the grave every single time. If your opponent is called by the graves, Every, it's not the end of the world. She is not the absolute win condition of the deck. You can still do other stuff. You play other synchros, you play links. With Scapegoat, you can have another win condition. So I think just 1 is perfectly fine. But what she does is that she's a level 7 generic. That requires not generic, requires a non-tuner spellcaster, but generic for this deck, because you all master spellcasters. So during she gains all the Fortune Ladies gain attack points equal to their level, and during your standby phase they gain 1 level. So Fortune Lady Every gains 400 for each of her levels. So she starts of 2800. She gains 1 level during each of her standby phases. She gains 400 attack for that, and once she does, you can also banish non-targeting an opponent's monster. And during your opponent's end phase, if she's in the graveyard, you can banish another spellcaster from your graveyard and bring her back from the grave. So you can bring her back before your standby phase. So even if your opponent deals with her, if she's not banished, you can bring her back. And during your turn, you can banish an opponent's monster. So that's pretty good. And that's why you only need 1, because she keeps recycling herself. But she's the monster you want to summon during your first turn, most likely. Unless you don't have a Silent Magician, or unless you absolutely need a defensive play. So that's why you only need 1. And Dragster is the turn 1 defensive play if you absolutely need to have a negate because you think you're going to get OTK'd by your opponent or you're going to lose complete control of the game. You summon Dragster turn 1 instead of Every. It's a good thing that calling locks you into synchros, not fortune ladies, so you can use any kind of synchros you want. I play some level 6 synchros because there are some scenarios where you don't have to, where you actually don't have, you cannot banish 2 spellcasters with Pasty because you've drawn a lot of spells or traps. You can only banish Slighty, so you get Pasty to level 2 and you get Watery from the deck. You can get Darky if you want to go into level 7, but that won't give you any plus. Watery will give you a draw 2, so this is the only level 6 synchro that can potentially be a disruption during your opponent's turn. Red Wyvern, it's generic, and once all these cards face up on the field, you can destroy a monster on the field with more attack points than it. It's kind of situational, but it can work in certain matchups. And for going second, for the sim scenario I mentioned, Brionac, because you draw a lot of cards, you can freely discard anything you want, and it's really good against Thunder to be able to put back all the Colossus and all the Titans that your opponent has on the field, and against other matchups, if you've baited out negates or something, that you can just shuffle back their entire field. And 1 Crystal Wing. Sometimes in the perfect world, you can summon this turn 1, but you need to have 1-for-1, because you get Every with Fortune Lady Calling, and you 1-for-1 another Pasty from your deck, and Crystal Wing needs a Synchron on Tuner, which that's Every, and Pasty level 1 Tuner, so you can summon it during your first turn, have a very good monster that can potentially be a disruption, it can also be a big beater, and Every will come back during the next turn, so you have a lot of damage on the field. It's very situational, but it can happen, so that's good enough for me to have it in the extra deck. For the links, Link Rebo, you play some level 1s, but it's mainly for Scapegoat. Same Link Spider is just for Scapegoat, because you need some tokens. Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn, because Scapegoat gives you access to all of these, so why wouldn't you want to play them? Ningirsu. Fortune Ladies have very weird cards in the sense that you don't really need them after turn 1, but they stay on the field. The best example is Fortune Vision. It stays, its effect is not that relevant, so it just sits there doing nothing. Ningirsu can capitalize on that because of Scapegoat, but there are also other ways to summon it. If you don't lock yourself out of anything else than Synchros because of calling, then you can use Ningirsu's effect on your dead Fortune Vision, so you can get rid of one of your opponent's cards while still having the beater on the field. And for the Link Force, Borload, because of Scapegoat. These links are kind of weird. It uses up 10 slots in the extra deck for mainly 1 card, but you don't really need a lot of Synchros in order for this deck to work. Sometimes you just beat them down with Darky, so it's not like you really need the extra deck for this deck to win. So that's why I've used a lot of slots. Boral Sword, because this deck struggles. It cannot OTK, sometimes it can against the perfect scenario when your opponent has nothing on the field, but this card helps with Scapegoat. Apollosa and Avramax are really good in a deck that doesn't have any inherent way of negating or dealing with opponent's cards. Avramax is very resilient against certain decks, and Apollosa, you usually summon her during the late game when you have accumulated a lot of monsters on the field. It's very hard to summon her early because of the restriction of calling, but if you can summon her even with 3 monsters in late game where you're trying to win the grind game, 1 or 2 negates can pretty much seal the deal against most decks. So that's why I think you need to run both. These are not cards that you will usually summon using Scapegoat, but you can summon them with any monster during the late game. So yep, that's the deck, guys. It's a really fun deck if you want to try it out. If you're a big 5Ds fan like I am, Carly was one of my favorite characters back in 5Ds, and I'm really glad that Konami finally, after 10 years, decided to give this deck support, and it was actually good support, so I'm also glad about that. But leave a thumbs up, guys, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more deck profiles like this, and we'll see you next time.